start the
Yep.
presentation?
Um,
Okay, all right. Hello, everyone. This is Saba Wasim, and I have here with me Catherine Severo and Nian Matai, as well as Emily Hilton. Welcome to the webinar. We are really excited to launch this last grand project of GMS to assess our grand flagship PR dashboards. And we're very happy that you can join us and be part of this team. Today, we're going to talk about the process of data collection for the assessment of PR dashboards and the CCM summary where it was implemented. But before I start, I'd like Nian to go over some housekeeping rules for the webinar today. So Nian?
Hi, everyone. So as you would have noticed when you came in, you were automatically muted. This is just to minimize the background noises from all of our almost nearly 20 different places that we're connecting from. So you can do that. If you have any questions during the course of the webinar, please use the little chat function, but make sure that you send it to all participants so that Emily will be able to see the chat and she can respond to any issues that instead of sort of the chat popping up on top of the presentation, Emily will be able to address those. Yeah, that's about it. We'll send you a link to the recorded session at the end so that you can take a listen again if you have any lingering questions. But yeah, after the webinar, please feel free to email any of us with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, so in this webinar today, we are starting what we call training for our national consultants who will be leading the effort for collecting data from our in-country respondents, being the PRs and the CCM Secretariat and CCM members. So as you all know, why do we need an assessment? As you all know, dashboards were invented and piloted by GMS in 2014 with the Global Fund and SAP. And now, much to our delight, they are now being rapidly deployed in country, not only by GMS, but also by partners like the Global Fund and the French 5% initiative and the GIZ. And we all want to know that how they are being implemented and the extent to which they're being used to achieve impact and outcomes in the country. So the Global Fund is increasingly viewing them as vital management tools, and the interest in the assessment is not merely academic, but it's not just an end of project requirement that we want to do an assessment of the dashboards, but rather it's forward-looking, and it's crucial for a rollout by the others to ensure sustainability and any adaptation that might happen further down the line. So what are the questions that we are asking? The questions that we are asking in this assessment are fairly similar to the questions that we asked in the pilot. And for those of you who are not familiar with the pilot report, I'd suggest that you have a look at it on our GMS website. The three main questions that we are asking are dashboards fully integrated into the normal PR and CCM activity? To what extent and how are they being used by the CCM and PR for management and oversight? And what has been the impact? The second question is, what is the impact of this use of the dashboard for management and oversight on grant performance? And finally, what are the factors that have contributed to sustainability? What are the factors that lead a PR or a CCM to use the dashboards? And if not, if they don't use it, what are the factors that affect them not using the dashboards? And this is important because it would be used to address factors that impact their sustainability. So as you know, those of you who worked with GMS, that the rollout has been pretty rapid. And we were, in fact, surprised when we saw the numbers that we have now 28 countries which have adopted dashboards, with 98 PRs, and that's quite an astounding number. They have tried the PR or the regional dashboard and CCM summaries. We must remember that not all countries have CCM summaries. The dashboards were rolled out by most GMS assignments in what we've called the whole of country approach, where we develop dashboards for the entire grant portfolio and a CCM summary. but sometimes the dashboard was implemented by two single PRs, and in that case, we might not have the CCM summary. So the data gathering that we will conduct for this assessment will happen between 22nd June and the 14th of July. So that is when you will collect data in country. One national consultant has been identified in each of these 28 countries. You will interview the PR and the CCM representatives using a structured questionnaire that we have shared with you. The GMS team here in the headquarters will interview the FPM, so we will have two sets of data. And then IRESCO, led by Mark Peshevis, by Gedeon and Odile, and Zigo Group, led by Mark Peshevis and GMS, will analyze the data and we'll write the report. And we're looking to finalize the report by the end of August. So what are your specific tasks? Your specific task, first and foremost, is to get the feed files for each dashboard and the CCM summary as soon as you establish contact with the PRs and the CCMs, because this will enable you, ideally you should have them before the interview so that you can review them and prepare yourself for the interview. If not, second best case is when you get them during the interview. Then you conduct a CCM interview. The CCM interview would involve the key oversight member and the CCM summary focal person. So there'll be two people, and we'll talk to you more about who those people are. And they should be interviewed together, unless there's a very valid reason for not interviewing them together. But remember, when you enter the data online, it will only be one record per interview, per CCM. And then you will conduct the PR interview with each PR, with the PR grant manager and the PR dashboard focal person. If in some cases it might be that the same PR has managed two dashboards, then you will have to do two interviews. And you might have a situation where you have repeating information. You make a record of that, but in the questionnaire, you'll have to enter two interviews. So there are two types of situations in terms of the length of dashboard use in countries. We've seen that countries in cluster, for GMS countries and other countries, there's a cluster of countries where dashboards have been installed for 3 months or less. For these countries, and we'll show you the list of those countries in a little bit, we are using what we call a truncated questionnaire, where it's a shorter version of interviews. And these interviews are going to be about whether you have installed the dashboard and what are you going to do with them? What are your intentions of use? So it is an assessment of their uptake of the dashboard. And this should typically take about 60 to 90 minutes per PR and CCM. On the other hand, we have a cluster of countries which have done dashboards for more than 3 months. And for these countries, we will use the full version of interviews. So this is the main questionnaire, what we call the main questionnaire. This interview will take about 90 minutes to 2 hours per PR, and about 1 to 1.5 hours per CCM. That's our estimate, and we've tested it, and I think that should be what happens. So in terms of the truncated versus full, this is the list of countries. So you'll see that in the truncated, the surveys would be administered to 9 countries plus 1 region. So that's the list: Botswana, DRC, India. The full surveys will be administered to 16 countries and 2 regions. And these are distinct instruments. In terms of regional grants, we have 3 regional grants, and they have this is a list of questionnaires that would be applicable to them. TIMS would get 1 full PR dashboard questionnaire and 1 CCM questionnaire. CANCO will just need 1 full PR dashboard questionnaire, and OECS will have 1 truncated PR dashboard questionnaire, 1 CCM questionnaire with no CCM summary. And this will be explained to you later, the CCM options for the CCM questionnaire. So how do you set up the interviews? What is the sequence of events that's going to happen for these interviews? So first and foremost, Global Fund Country team will send out an authorization email to the CCM and PRs, and they've already started sending out those emails so that the fund portfolio manager will inform the CCM and the PRs that GMS is coming to conduct this assessment. This will be followed up by an email that GMS will send to each CCM and the PRs with with your name being on that email, naming you as the national consultant and telling them about the timeline for the interviews. Then it will be up to you. You will take on the baton from there, and you will use email or telephone or whatever personal visits that is necessary to set up face-to-face interviews between this period, 22nd June to the 14th of July. Before you go for the interview, you will send the questionnaires to the PRs and CCM so they are prepared, they understand, and they gather the right kind of people together. You can email them to your respondents. And I'm reminding you again that you should ask them when you make the contact for the dashboards so that you can review them. And then you will let us know, me, Saba, and Nian, via email about the dates of your interview so we can keep a track of the progress. So getting ready for the interviews. You should print out a copy of the questionnaire for each grant and one for the CCM interview. So each grant gets a questionnaire. Remember, you're not going to fill the questionnaire online. So we will give you the questionnaire in SurveyMonkey, but when you're going to the interview, you are just going to take the printed questionnaire. You can pre-fill the sections A and B. You should pre-fill sections A and B for PR and also sections A and B for the CCM. But you would have to validate that information when you're starting the interview with the PR or the CCM. And then rehearse the questions. Read the questions, rehearse them, and most of you know your PRs. Ask where you might look at the questions where they might need a little bit more prompting. Make notes of explanations and transition phases to help yourself. So it's very important to make the correct transitions from one section to another and to explain to the PRs that now you're going to ask about one thing and now you're going to ask about another thing. So that I will talk about a little bit more. Once you've completed during the interview, you explain what the purpose of the assessment is, just what we talked about, and how valuable their feedback is going to be. Again, ask for the feed files if you don't have them. Review the sections A and B that you have pre-filled. There is some information about grant data and who conducted the TA and the dates, things like that. Then you complete the other sections by hand filling it. Encourage discussion, so that you don't just take their word for it, but sometimes they might have trouble recalling exact examples. So you should get them to think about concrete examples and evidence to support their responses. And then you thank the interviewees and explain to them that this report will be available to them shortly. And then if we make any quotes that are directly attributable to them, that we name them in some quotes, we will ask for their permission before we actually put their names in the report. And in terms of obtaining the feed files, this is very important because we actually want to look at the data that has been put into the dashboards, and we're going to extract that data for our analysis. The focal points can send you the data by an email, or you can put it in a Dropbox, or there are different versions. You can get it in Google Docs. You can get it in USB, but as Catherine has very inventively put that virus, be aware of the virus. So be careful when you're using the USB, but of course everybody knows in country how that happens. So now let's look at the questionnaires. As I mentioned to you, there are three questionnaires. One is what we call the PR main questionnaire, the PR truncated questionnaire, and then the CCM summary questionnaire. The PR main questionnaire has 6 sections, and as I said before, the sections A and B can be done before. Similarly, the truncated questionnaire has 4 sections. A and B can be entered before. And in the PR main section, you have C, D, E, which will be answered by all PRs. F is a section where you talk about why, if the PR has stopped making the dashboards, what are the reasons. So there's a logic in the questionnaire, and that you will understand when you see it. As I said before, the PR truncated questionnaire is forward-looking and looks at how the PR is planning to use the dashboard. The CCM questionnaire is a little bit more involved, and Catherine will talk about the logic in the CCM questionnaire. It has the first 3 sections that will be answered by all, and one of the others, D, is for when the CCM did not adopt the CCM summary. The E is for those who tried the CCM summary but stopped using it. And F is when all the PRs stopped producing PR dashboards. And finally, there's a section on the status of dashboard production, the CCM summary production. The survey links will be emailed to you. So you have what Nian is showing right now. You have the links for the PR dashboard main survey, and they'll be in English and in French. But remember, you need to take the printouts to the interview, one per grant and one for CCM. So this is what the survey looks like, and it's very beautiful with our colors and very user-friendly. Nian and Emily worked their magic, and we've tested it, but there might be some bugs, so, some inconsistencies. It'd be good if you look at it one time before you actually go out to do it. Mainly, I won't go through the entire questionnaire right now, but we'll lead you through the types of questions that are in there, and that would apply to the CCM questionnaire as well. So if you look at the first question, which is the name of GMS consultant, it's a free text box. And here you can enter the name of the consultant who's conducting the interview. And there are some instructions on how the details are in the handout that we sent to you, detail on how to conduct the interview, how to fill the questionnaire. Then there is the other, question 2 is about the date of the questionnaire. Now, the date has to be entered, the date of the question, the time you complete the questionnaire. And then you scroll down to the multiple choice questions. The multiple choice questions are of two types. One is where only one choice is allowed, and those are if you were doing it in SurveyMonkey, then you would immediately not be allowed to enter more than two options. But when you're doing it in a printout, the way you can tell the only one response allowed from the tick all that apply type is that the only one response has got circles. So what Nian is showing you, if you enter government, you cannot do civil society, so there's only one option. But there's another type where you have to enter tick all that apply, number 6. And the Global Fund grants currently being managed by the PR could be multiple. And these are distinguished in the printout version by the box. So in most cases, we have tried to put in tick all that apply as an explanation. But if it's not there, then make sure that you know which is which, because you might run into problems when you're entering the data online after the interview. So let's go on to another type of question, which is a scale question. So question number 23, or actually, let's see question 17 first before we go there, because I want you to look at this question, question 17. So this is a question which tells you to skip to section F. Did the PR produce any dashboards after the active phase of technical support for this grant? So after the TA, did the PR produce any more dashboards on their own? If the answer to this is yes, then you continue with the questionnaire. If no, then you go to section F. So question 17 is important to know. And question 18 again, are they being still produced today? If yes, you complete the survey, but also do section F, skip to section F. If no, complete this full survey, including section F. So these are certain things that you have to remember the logic of the questionnaire. Now let's go to question 23, which is a scale question. And as you can see, this scale, what we have done is that we are asking them to rate on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is the least, very incomplete, and 5 is always the most. And this will always be true in all the questions which involve scales. So in this question, for instance, we're asking them how complete was the information in the different sections of the dashboard. So we're asking them to think about finance, the finance section of the dashboard, how complete is that information? And then we tell them, what about the programmatic indicators? What about the PSM indicators? So this is multiple levels in this question. So you'll have to spend some time on it, walk them slowly, and ask them to think about the dashboards that they've been producing. They all remember that they might not all be aware of the different sections. They might have forgotten what the different sections mean. For instance, compliance, management. What's the difference between the management and the compliance indicators? So for that, we have given you a dashboard, an example of a dashboard in the package that we sent you. So you should carry this with you to the interview and show it to them, that these are the different sections we're referring to. The finance is up there, where we're talking about the budget and expenditure. Programmatic is down here. So these are different sections of the dashboard, and this will help them recall. The management indicators where Nian is hovering, these are the management indicators, and these are the compliance indicators. So you should become familiar with this if you are not already, and bring this with you to the interview so that they know what the different indicators mean, because they come up again and again and again. So that's with question 23. And if you have any questions, we'll go take your questions after we've gone through this presentation. The next question that I wanted to show you is question 50, which is quite complex. It actually has three questions in one. This is talking about, did the dashboard help you as a PR? Did the use of the dashboard help you as a PR? First, in identifying issues, then in resolving those issues, taking corrective actions to resolve those issues, and third, did the resolution of these issues or the corrective actions that you take lead to improvements in performance? So this is again another question where you would need to spend some time. And I would like you recommend that you work through the questions horizontally. So first, talk about financial issues. Financial issues, were you able to identify any issues using the dashboard? Were you able to resolve them? And did that lead to any improvements in performance? So go issue by issue, financial programmatic PSM, and walk them through this, help them think through and walk them through this question. We were trying to make in that question the link between identification, resolution, and results. The chain of theory of change should be obvious to them. Question 51 is an example where you will enter some text. Here, when you're doing the interview, you can take notes however much you want, but when you're entering it to the SurveyMonkey, I would recommend that you make this as brief as possible so that it helps us with coding. So pick the main ideas and write it briefly. And there are some sections, I don't know where they're, where you say, when you give them a list of things and say, does this apply to you? Does this apply to you? And then we ask them, if there are others, please specify. And in that situation, there might be more than one or two other things. So for instance, here, if there are you can enter 2 or 3 more other things over there. Just number that. So these are the main types of questions that we have in the questionnaire. When you're doing the interview, it is very useful for you to make transition from one section to another, from one type of question to another. So when you're moving from, say, section C to section D in the PR main questionnaire, where section C, you've been talking about how the dashboard is being produced. Then you say, now we want to talk about section D. Asks you questions about use of the dashboard and the analysis of dashboards. So you make them move away from production to actual analysis and use. So make those transition statements. Once the interview is over, are you going to talk about the CCM summary now? Okay, so now I'll hand over to Catherine to talk about the CCM summary.
Hello, everyone. The questions in the CCM summary are of the same type as in the PR questionnaire. So I'm not going to talk about the types, but the most tricky thing about the CCM questionnaire are the filtering questions. So let's look at them very closely. As Saba said to you, For all CCMs, you fill out questions 1 through 30. And when you get to this question, this is the first filtering question. Was a CCM summary dashboard introduced and installed at the CCM? And if you tick yes, you would then go on to the next question, question 31. But if you tick no, you have to turn the pages and go to section D. Now, most of you will know ahead of time whether or not the CCM summary is there. So when you're preparing ahead of time, please use this filtering question for yourself and get ready to just confirm what you think is the situation. So if you know that they don't have the CCM summary, you might want to fold the pages so that you can go directly to section D, for example. So now let's look at question 31. Okay, this is for if it's yes. They said, yes, we tried the CCM summary. Then with question 31, you want to know, did you try the CCM summary less than 3 months ago or more than 3 months ago? If it's less than 3 months ago, you're done. Because it's so new that we really can't ask any more questions, because you've already asked questions about how the CCM oversight process is working, about how the CCM is working. So with the CCM summary dashboard, it's too new to ask anything else. So you'll stop right here. But if they've been using the CCM summary for more than 3 months, that means several quarters, you'll go on to the next question on the next page. And here's the next question. Are you still doing it? So if they intend to use the CCM summary this quarter and they used it last quarter, you tick yes. But if, unfortunately, they don't think they're going to continue, or they've decided to stop, then you tick no. Now, what we're hoping is that this question will always be yes, but we just don't know. So we provided for the possibility that there's some no's. But if it's a yes, then you go to the next question. And the next question is at least one PR dashboard still being produced? We know that there are some countries where 1 or 2 PRs have reached the end of their grant and they've stopped producing the dashboard. There's even one country where none of the PRs want to go on and they've stopped producing the dashboard. So even if the CCM likes the dashboard, if the PRs are not producing dashboards, you can't produce the CCM summary. So that's why here we have 2 choices. Yes, at least one PR is still producing the dashboard. If you tick yes, then basically you complete this longer section G about how does the CCM use dashboards. But if all the PRs have stopped producing dashboards, you tick no. And then you go down to section F, which is about what happened. So now let's look at section G, I think. 49. Oh, no, we're going to look at question 49, which is a bit tricky. So we wanted to show this to you. Okay. This question requires numbers. What are the due dates for CCM summary production? That means how many days after the end of the quarter or the 6 months, when does the when does the CCM Secretariat have to produce the CCM summary dashboard? And so it's usually a number. It's 15 days after the end of the quarter, or 45 days after the end of the 6-month period, or if that's not the deadline, maybe it's a number of days before the oversight body meeting, like it's 5 days before or 2 days before. But in some cases, they only produce the CCM summary the same day as the oversight meeting. In that case, please enter 0. The computer will not accept a tick mark. You need to enter 0 here if they produce the CCM summary the same day as the committee meeting. But if there's some other arrangement, for example, there's no specific deadline or there's some other sort of deadline, just type in, like Neanne just did, type in some words that explain what the deadline is. Another tricky question is, let's see, question 51. Now, question 51 is really a discussion question. This is where you're trying to find out what is the problem with producing the CCM dashboard on time. And so you need to think of a way to ask this question to get the person talking. Like, for example, you've said that you've had trouble producing the CCM summary on time. Can you tell me some of the reasons why you think this is happening? Or you could say, what happened last time that made the CCM summary difficult to produce, and what happened that it was late? And as the person is talking, you're listening, and as they say any of these reasons that are listed here, you would tick them. So for example, if they say, we had real trouble getting the feed files from the PRs, and because you would tick that, it's the fourth box. And then they might say, yeah, you know, the PRs are really having a hard time producing the dashboard. You could then tick that as well. So, but if they say something like, oh, I really don't know what to tell you. It was hard to produce it, but I don't know why. Then you could suggest some things. Is it a problem of data quality? Is it a problem of getting the information from the PRs? Maybe it is that you lost your dashboard focal person. You could suggest some things, but first try to get them to tell you spontaneously what the problem was. You might not be able to tick things off. Sometimes it's hard to listen and find the right answer. So if you want to just take notes on the paper, on this form in that blank space there, then after the interview, you could come back to question 51 and tick off the right answers based on what your notes were. Sometimes I have to do that because it's hard to listen, take notes, and find the right answer at the same time. So either method is fine, and you can always come back to it and recode your answer. Question 57 and question 60 are similar. They have this stripy appearance because really these are multiple questions in one question. So in this case, what you might want to do is say to the people, okay, now let's talk about how the oversight body is using the dashboards and the CCM summary. I'm going to ask you whether the oversight body ever does a certain number of things, and for each of these things, I'd like you to tell me whether they do it or not, and if there's been something interesting that's happened, we can explore that further. So first of all, has the oversight body ever seen a problem in the dashboard and decided to investigate it? And then you could tick yes or no. And then the next one would be, well, during the oversight committee meeting, do they ask questions about the dashboard with the PR? And then you would tick yes or no. You know, have they discussed solutions to problems with the PRs, or what happens? Do they ask the PR what their solutions are? You know, try to get them, it's not just yes or no, but see if you can get any little bits of detail. Has the oversight body made recommendations about the grants to the CCM? And this is linked, remember, to the page on the CCM summary dashboard that's recommendations and actions. So if they say no or they say don't know, you might want to say to them, could we look at the recommendations and actions page on your last CCM summary to see if anything was noted there? And then you would have some confirmation of what their answer is. And so these other points, mobilizing technical support, asking the PR to report back, encouraging PRs to work together, to share good practices, comparing performance. I mean, so you can see that this section 57 is actually going to take maybe 10 or 15 minutes just for this one page, because this is really the heart of the matter. How does the CCM Oversight Committee use the dashboard and the CCM summary to do better oversight? And similarly, the question number 60 asks questions about what does the full CCM do with the CCM summary and the information that they get from the Oversight Committee. For example, does the full CCM validate the recommendations made by the Oversight Committee? And that should be also recorded on the recommendations and actions page of the last CCM summary. Does the full CCM try to mobilize technical assistance to help the PR solve a specific problem? Or do they task one specific CCM member to help solve a problem? For example, they might ask WHO, or they might ask the Ministry of Finance CCM member to help the PR solve a problem. And we could even imagine that in some cases the CCM has referred a problem to higher level of government for resolution. For example, if the problem is that the government has not provided the customs clearance, tax-exempt customs clearance, they might refer that problem to the Ministry of Finance or to the Prime Minister's office for support. And so you're trying to find out just how active is that CCM in using the analysis of the Oversight Committee to solve problems where the resolution requires more than the PR can do on its own. And finally, it would be interesting to know if the CCM has ever made a cross-cutting decision based on the CCM summary. For example, a cross-cutting decision might be that they need to find some additional principal recipients next time, or that they want to ask two PRs to work together in a different way, or that actually even maybe there's something that needs to be modified in the DHIS2, and therefore they're going to have to liaise with the Ministry of Health and with the DHIS2 project, and that would affect all the grants and all the PRs. So this is really where we're trying to find out the higher level problem resolution assisted by the CCM. So those are the rest of the questions on the CCM questionnaire are pretty easy. It's really those two that are the hardest. And so you need to take your time. I'm going to hand this back over to Saba to explain what to do once you've finished the interviews.
Thank you, Catherine. And yes, and what Catherine said about talking and through the questions and the different options and getting spontaneous responses first before listing out the issues when you have a long list of probable reasons for, say, stopping production of a dashboard applies to the PR dashboard questionnaire as well. So take your time and solicit spontaneous responses. At the same time, I would recommend that you read out the question to them rather than interpret, and because we've been very careful with the language, the way we've phrased some of the questions. So read out the question to them first. Once the interview is over, review the handwritten questionnaire when you get back home. Complete the questions, summarize the comments in text boxes. If there are any missed questions or any responses that you're not sure about, please call back your respondents, get in touch with them and clarify those questions with them. Then once all that is done, you enter the data in SurveyMonkey in the link that Nian has sent to you for each grant and a CCM. So if you're interviewing 5 PRs with 5 grants, then you'll have to do it 5 times. And the CCM summary questionnaire, and then you said submit.
For each one.
For each one. Yes, for each one. Email us when you have submitted the questionnaire, although I think we should be able to go in and look at the data, but it'd be great if you can email so that we can track your progress. And then you're done. Before we start the interviews, what we have, we're devised a plan for coaching you from our end. So between now and even before you start the interviews and during the process of data collection, you have been allocated a coach at GMS, and here's the list. So Nian, Saba, Liz, Catherine, Emily, and Eduardo will do coaching and give you any support that you need in terms of carrying out this data collection. What I would propose for my team, I've got a list of 8 consultants who are 8 of you who are going to be working with me. I would like to start off with Skype call, maybe in the next few days, with 4 to 5 in a group. So some people are in Asia, so I can schedule a Skype call with you all, and then people in Africa, a separate Skype call, to go over the process and the logistics. And between now and say, Friday, you would have had a chance to look at the questionnaire, review it carefully, look at the questions to see if there are any ambiguities and certain things that you don't understand, and then we can talk about it on that Skype call. Especially people who haven't worked on a PR dashboard assignment. It might be new to you. So go to the Global Fund website, GMS website, and then we'll follow up. And if we might need more, we might be able to give you more help if you have any questions. And Catherine wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to say for James, Minnie, and Rahana, I know you are all together this week in Liberia. So if you could look at the questionnaires together and decide if you have any questions, I could do one Skype with the 3 of you. Now, Luis, I know that you are by yourself, so if you would like to Skype with me, why don't you schedule your appointments first, and then we can Skype in the 2-3 days before you go out, and we can set that up when it's convenient for you. Similarly, I think that Mark and Kinani are together. I'm sure, Mark, that you can go through the questionnaires with Kinani, and then you let us know if there are any additional things that would need Nian's coaching.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So once again, thank you so much, and we're really excited to do this, and we are data nerds at this end, so we're excited about collecting all this data and analyzing it. But the aim is that we should be able to show the huge impact that PR dashboards are potentially having or can have on grant performance.
Yes, some of you may not remember this, but in 2012, we did the first study of this kind that had ever been undertaken. And we were able to demonstrate that using the early dashboard, the 2008 CCM dashboard, there was a positive impact on grant performance. Now, this is a much more intensive process now with PR dashboards and the CCM summary. So we're really curious to know if we can observe a change in grant performance from this combination of management and oversight dashboards. And so we'll be using all the statistical tricks that Mark and Gédéon can think of to see if we can detect an effect. So we're really counting on you to get this data so we can, continue to show whether you can link, you can use statistical analysis to measure performance improvement through management and governance strengthening. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, so now questions. So I think Nian wants you to type, and Emily is going to tell us what the questions are.
Or, I think in this case, now that we're not talking, you can just unmute yourself at this point if you have a question.
You want them to raise their hand?
No, they can unmute themselves.
Oh, okay.
And
verbally ask
the question.
Okay.
So while you're thinking of questions.
So here's one from Louis.
Oh, okay.
Question 50 of the PR questionnaire.
Well, first of all, the end of technical support does that include the follow-up period? No. We're talking about the end of the last visit by the team of consultants. So, for example, we know that there are some teams that are even finishing right now. So, of course, you will use the truncated questionnaires. So the end of the technical support is when the full team left the country for the last time. Now, the next question, also from Luis, is about question 50.
Yeah, I can answer that one.
Okay.
Luis, for question 50 on the full CCM summary, you're right, it doesn't show up. The answers for the drop-down menus do not show up on the printed copy, but you should be able to see them on the links that are attached, on the links that are found on the instruction guides. Just for your information, for column number 1, it is yes, no, don't know. And for column number 2 and 3, it is yes, no, don't know, and not applicable. So, yeah, if you can write them down on the PDF copies, those are the different options in the drop-down. When will CCMs and PRs be informed of the evaluation?
So the process is, as I explained in the beginning, it's the FPMs and the country teams will first send an email to the country alerting them to the assessment, and immediately following that, once we are copied on those emails, and once the FPM sends out the letter, we immediately contact the CCM that this is happening. So hopefully by the beginning of next week, we should have contacted most CCMs. And you will know of that email because you'll be copied on that first email that we send out to the CCM and the PR.
As of today, for the 28 countries, we have received 7 letters from FPM. So those 7 we will be answering today or tomorrow. So especially for retail, we're going to do South Africa today. Tim's today, so you can get started. Now, the next one, Kevin, you're such a techno nerd. The reason why, there are 2 reasons why we want you to use the paper questionnaire and not enter the data as the person is talking online. First of all, I don't know about your country, but I don't think there are many countries where you can stay online in SurveyMonkey for 2 straight hours without the connection cutting off. So you need to, in the interview, to have a good quality interview, you need to focus on listening and asking questions and not focus on the IT. Second of all, having done a lot of questionnaires in a lot of different countries with a lot of different methods, using the IT is rude. You spend your time looking at the screen and not looking at the person you're interviewing. When you use a paper questionnaire, it's much easier to look up and listen to the person that's talking to you and then look down to take the notes. And I've just found myself that you get a better conversation if you're using a paper note process than if you're using a computer. When you use a computer note-taking process, it seems much more like they're taking a test. So I think both for the technology and the human relationships, it's better to use paper.
And I'd like to add to that by saying that this is the reason that we are sending you out to do a face-to-face interview and not sending the link to the PR. Otherwise, they could just enter the information as they wish. So we want you to have that conversation and incorporate that conversation in the questionnaire rather than just fill circles. So Rita, you had a question about more instructions for regional grants. There are no more instructions apart from the list of questionnaires that would be filled for each particular grant. But yes, if you have questions, you can address them to your coaches.
So this was the list, Rita. And we will send you the presentation. To answer Minnie's question, we will send you the presentation after this meeting. You already have the PDF versions of the questionnaires and the instructions, the interview guide instructions, which have the links, but I will also send out the links, and the links will be found in the presentation. So they'll be in the email, in the instruction guide, and this presentation.
Yes. You will have to wait. The question is, do we wait for the letter of introduction from Global Fund before we begin the interview? Certainly. But if you know your PRs and you know your CCMs, you can informally alert them to the process. You can maybe send them a text or a phone call and say, we are planning these interviews. But we have to wait for the official letter from the Global Fund and then from us before you can actually conduct the interview.
So, for example, James and Minnie and Rahana, you're in Liberia right now, and you were or Rahana and Minnie, no, and James too, you were all involved in doing the dashboards. So you can certainly make the appointment, tell them it's coming, but please don't start until we get that email from Seble.
And Tapan, I think if you're still on, you had raised the issue of Eid, and that there'll be 3 days of Eid vacation happening in your country, and maybe I'm sure in a lot of other countries, respondents might not be available. So yes, it would be a good idea to reach out to them if you know them and start slotting times. But the actual interview should wait till we send out the formal letter.
And that's also why we are extending the deadline from the 7th of July until the 14th of July, because we know different countries are having Eid or different countries are finalizing grant-making documents. So there's 1 extra week to get this all done. Okay, any more questions? Well, don't forget you each have a coach, and we'll be happy to have any number of Skypes and telephone calls with you. Just send us an email or a Skype contact, and we can have a longer discussion. But maybe the next thing to do is to think about the calendar for when you want to do the interviews, and read those questionnaires and try to identify all the questions you might have that we need to discuss. Okay. Okay.